Here we go. We've done so many things now. We've worked with the buyer, we've worked with the seller, we've come up with a business plan, we've written a contract. Now we're going to take the contract from where we just finished it and take it all the way to closing. That's the part you're really concerned with, because that's when you get a check. All the work you've done up until that point, until the closing happens, there's no check. And then next week we've got 2 more sessions. We're going to do risk management and we'll do negotiating. And then we'll be through. Y'all will be all the way through the entire thing, ready to go get you a check.
Yes.
Y'all can get you a check now. Just got to get somebody from contract to close. So let's see what we've got to do to get them from contract to close. Got objectives here. What all has got to be done? We've got a checklist we're going to work with. In fact, we're going to watch a video here in just a minute. It's about a 15-minute video that lays it all out. Everything that from contract all the way through closing, because there's a lot of people involved in this besides you now. You've got appraisers, you've got lenders, you've got surveyors, you've got termite people, you've got another agent involved. You've got just so many people now that any one of them can drop the ball. So in addition to having all these people involved, you've got to have good communications with all of them. And again, that's our weak spot, is communications, talking to other people. And it's getting worse because people don't call anybody anymore. Who calls you? Nobody. They'll text you. They'll send you an email. But the newest generation, what do they call them? Generation Z? And I hope that doesn't mean that's the last generation. But they don't want to talk to anybody. They want to just, they're playing a video game or doing something and multitasking. But you've got to maintain your communication skills. Here's all the things. We've talked about a lot of this already. Even in the last session, we talked about several of these things. Remember that first one? We have a new clause in there, time is of the essence. Well, all of these things have time limits on them, when they have to be done. They have to be done by a certain time. Some things can't be done until a certain time. So you've got to be aware of all your time limitations and that time is of the essence clause. We've already talked about mortgage application, home inspections. We're going to touch on each of these a little deeper now that we're into the closing. We're in the executory phase of our deal now. We have the contract, 2-sided bilateral contract in hand, and we're going to move forward from here. A lot of things got to be like the mortgage payoff. Who would think, well, yeah, there's a mortgage on the property. Who's going to, Mr. Seller, don't you know how much you owe on it? Well, I know about. But he's going to have to, or the closing agent. You won't contact the mortgage company for this. Usually it'll be the closing agent that'll handle this, because they'll get a letter from the mortgage company saying, as of this date, which is the projected closing date, here's what the payoff is. And the payoff is going to be different from what the seller thinks it is, because there may be some more fees on there. They may have missed a payment 3-4 years ago. The mortgage company didn't forget it. They've got it figured in there, and you've probably been paying some extra fees and interest and things on that. So they'll get all that squared away, all the way down to turning in the keys and saying, I'm out of here. Closing and then follow up. All right, here we go. This is a video that
with the Brooks Group at Keller Williams Realty. Today I'm very excited to present to you a real estate transaction overview, a bird's eye view of a real estate transaction from the very beginning when we're first meeting with a prospect all the way through the end and we're collecting a check at the closing table. Now, I want you to start thinking about the deal flow of a real estate transaction in 2 phases. The first phase is going to be the sales process. So that's going to be meeting your client, prospecting, and going all the way through negotiating and ratifying a contract. The second phase is going to be the contract to close phase, and that's going to be from contract ratification to closing. Now, this is an overall view of the transaction deal flow, with the seller's portion of the transaction being on the left-hand side and the buyer's side of the transaction is on the right-hand side. Notice the seller has comparatively fewer steps in the transaction process, where the buyer actually has a lot more steps in that transaction. So let's start on the seller side, and as you can see, there really just isn't a whole lot to it. So we're going to start out with the seller, we're going to have a listing appointment, go on that listing appointment, and we're going to go over the market analysis with them. We're going to go over the listing paperwork itself that makes them a client. We're also at that time there, we're going to have them sign all of the disclosures that we're ultimately going to give to the buyer, which will then come back to the seller in the form of an offer and then a ratified contract. So present the CMA, establish a listing price, which is part of the listing agreement, have the listing agreement signed, preferably at that initial meeting that you go to with them. And then from there, you have a signed listing. You're going to come back to the office. That's going to go in the MLS. We're going to put in all of the advertising we're going to do, which most of it gets fed in through the MLS in List Hub and some of the other means that we advertise through. We're also going to be in Boomtown, making our cold calls, everything else. Hold open houses. And really, once that marketing goes out there and our prospecting calls with our buyers, that's about it on the seller side. Don't forget, we're going to have at that point, we're going to order professional photographs. We're going to make sure that the lockbox gets put on that property. But one of my goals is really to go out to that property as few times as possible. So again, go to the property, meet with the seller, establish the price, get the listing agreement signed, get your disclosure signed, put it in the MLS, have your professional photos done, and then that's it. That's why sellers are so awesome to work with, because it's fire and forget. Guess who's actually going to go sell that listing? Is it going to be you? No, it's going to be somebody else. That's why I've always loved listings more than anything in the world. You do the work up front and let somebody else sell it. Now, moving over to the buyer side, there are a few more moving parts. Each one of these parts is very important. So it's important that you follow the deal flow, that you don't skip any steps. That's usually where agents start getting themselves in trouble when it comes to the buyer side of the transaction. Now, initially, the first thing, we're going to make contact with a buyer. We're going to identify which buyer's in the market within the next 6 months. And the very first thing is get that buyer agreement signed. We never, ever, ever take a client out looking at a property without a signed buyer agreement and without a pre-approval. So that stands to reason that the very first things you're going to do is get a buyer agreement, and then we're going to work on the pre-approval process. Once we've spoken with that buyer, we've done our comprehensive buyer interview. We've gone through all of their wants, their needs, their top 10s. We've talked to them about the buyer agreement and why that's important for them and how that benefits them. We've also spoken with them about the lender and why that's important to be pre-approved prior to us going out. Then it's time for them to actually speak to the lender. Whether you conference that lender in on a conference call 3-way with them, or whether you send them to the lender, or if they brought their own lender to the table, the next step is for them to actually apply with that lender. So the lender does the application, and at that point there, they're going to either be pre-approved for a certain amount, or they're going to be unable to qualify, whether it's because of their debt-to-income ratio was too high, credit scores weren't high enough, they didn't have enough money to close, etc. If they are unable to qualify because of any of those reasons, then it's time to develop a plan, such as, and a lot of lenders will have plans as far as credit repair, or we need to figure out, do they need a co-signer to go on there and help them with the purchase? Do they need to pay off some credit cards to make sure their debt-to-income ratio works, etc. Whatever it is that's causing them not to qualify, we need to come up with a plan and put them on a nurture campaign and make sure that that lender is staying on top of them and that they're moving towards their creditworthiness goals to qualify. Now, if they do qualify right off the bat, then the lender is going to give a pre-approval letter. It's very important that we have that pre-approval letter in hand prior to going out and searching. So the next step from there is we have a pre-approval letter. We've done our comprehensive buyer interview, so we know exactly what they're looking for. We know exactly how much they're qualified for. Now, never take them out looking at properties above what they're qualified for, because you're just going to end up disappointing your buyer at that point, and they're going to become very frustrated and not buy anything. So from there, we're going to take them out looking at, we're actually going to send them the all of the homes within their buying criteria and their price range. We're going to have them narrow that down to their top 10. From there, we're going to ask them which ones are their top 5 favorites out of those 10. And of those top 5, we're going to let them know these are the ones we're going to go look at, but we're going to look at the top 3 first. So let's narrow it down one more time. This lets them know that they are looking at the 3 best properties on the market first, so that they don't have a need to have to see everything in the market before making a decision. Now that we've looked at the top properties on the market and they've indicated an interest in making an offer, then it's time to actually put together and craft the offer itself. So we're going to find out what are our terms of our offer going to be, settlement date, how much of a deposit are we going to put down, is there a seller contribution towards closing costs that they need, etc. And we're going to take the disclosures that the seller provided us initially, and then we're going to take our offer in the purchase contract, and we're going to mix those two together and submit that in the form of an offer. This is actually the exciting part, where the two sides finally converge into one. As the buyer's agent, you're going to have your offer in hand and signed with everything ready to go, including a copy of the deposit check and the pre-approval letter. You're going to submit that to the listing agent. At this point here, this is where the really exciting part of the transaction begins. It's the negotiations. This is where you either save or make your client a lot of money. So now we're in the negotiations phase of the process. The buyer's agent has submitted the offer, as well as a copy of the pre-approval letter and a copy of the earnest money deposit check, to the listing agent. At this point here, the listing agent submits this to the seller, comes up with a response of either they're going to accept that offer, they're going to counter offer with a different price or terms, or they're going to reject the offer outright without a response. So then it goes back to the buyer's agent, who then checks in with the buyer for whatever their response is, and that can go back and forth a couple times until there's a meeting of the minds and they've agreed upon the price and terms. Once the price and terms have been agreed upon and the offer is then signed by the seller, we now have a ratified contract, and we then move into the next phase, which is contract to close. As we move into the contract to close phase, things start moving very quickly, and then there starts to be a lot of moving parts. The main things to deal with once the contract has been ratified is the title company, the loan approval process, the home inspections, and then the appraisal, which is part of the loan process. We're going to break that down here real quick. So as soon as that contract is accepted, you're going to submit a copy of that contract, as well as with that deposit, over to the title company as soon as possible. You're also going to make sure, if you're on the buyer side, you're going to immediately submit that same contract to the lender so they can get started with the loan approval process. The buyer's then immediately going to contact their insurance company and start the homeowner's insurance process. Now from there, once that loan officer has that contract, they're going to immediately order the appraisal. The appraisal is going to be done within, say, 1 week of it being ordered. The appraiser is going to come out to the property. They're going to look at comparable sales, and they're going to determine a value on that property. The loan is then going to go through underwriting, where the mortgage underwriter is going to go through and make sure that all of the things that were submitted during the pre-approval process, such as the W-2s, pay stubs, tax returns, that those things all actually match and are verified and work for this particular loan. They're going to make sure that the credit scores are still good. the debt to income ratio fits the guidelines for that particular lending program, and that we have enough funds to close. And finally, they're going to issue a loan approval and a clear to close prior to closing. Back to the inspections. As soon as that contract is accepted, if you're working on the buyer side as a buyer's agent, you're going to order the home inspection with your inspector. Now, generally, you're only going to have between 7 and 10 days to actually have that inspection done and then submit any request for repairs, if any, to the listing agent. So you'll have the home inspection completed. You're going to review that home inspection report, and if there are any items that need to be repaired, you're going to make an addendum and you're going to submit that over to the listing agent. Now, let's go through the title work real quick also. So it's the same thing. As soon as that contract is accepted, you're going to submit that contract to the title company. In the state of Maryland, the buyer has the choice of title companies. So the title company is then going to go through, do the title search, preliminary title report, and make sure there are no problems there. On the seller side, just as above in the sales process, the seller has very little to do in the contract to close section. Really, you're just going to make sure that all of the disclosures that are required by law were provided. You're going to facilitate entry into the home for the home inspector. Please don't have your sellers be there. It gets awkward. Also, finally, once the buyer's agent has submitted any requests for repairs, if any, the listing agent is going to take that to the sellers, and then they're going to negotiate one more time. You're either going to accept whatever the repairs they're requesting and have a contractor do those repairs, or you're going to negotiate some sort of seller credit to the buyer so they can do the repairs themselves after closing. Either way, it's whatever the buyer and seller agree to. So there's that one final little negotiation. And then finally, once all of those moving parts have been completed, meaning, okay, we've checked off the home inspection, the buyer and seller are good with all of that, the insurance has been ordered and sent to the title company, that's all good. The loan has gone through its entire process and we have it clear to close, the property appraised, all of that, finally we're able to go to closing. And it's very important that all of those things have to happen by the date that was in the contract that we agreed to close by. If not, and sometimes the lender's a little slow, etc., or there's a problem, we may need to extend the settlement date. But finally, though, we're ready to close. The lender sends over all of its documents and requirements to the title company, and the buyer shows up with a buyer agent, the seller shows up with the seller's agent, they meet at the table, they sign all of the closing documents, and finally we're closed. The seller will bring the keys, any garage door openers, important documents, things, warranties for the appliances and things. They'll bring those things, hand them off to the buyer. The buyer's agent, just prior to closing, will take their buyers and do a final walkthrough to make sure that that property is in the same condition on the day of closing as it was when they put it under contract, that there's no new damage or that the seller didn't move all of their stuff out, etc. And as long as everything is good there, as a courtesy, the buyer's agent will actually bring the lockbox to closing to give to the listing agent so they don't need to come back out to the property and get it. The keys are exchanged, checks are exchanged, the buyer's thrilled, they have a new home, the seller's thrilled, they got their home sold, and all is well with the world. Now that is how a complete transaction works from start to finish. If you have any questions, let me know down in the comments section. Thank you very much for attending this training session, and we look forward to the next one.
Thank you.
Was anything on there we haven't covered?
Nope.
I really liked his video. It pulled it all together. He didn't ramble off in the weeds anywhere. Just here's what we got to do first. Here's your responsibility, yours. Here's how it comes together. Then here's where we go from there. The inspections. I mean, it had it all down. I thought just great. So whoever you are out there in Maryland, I appreciate it. Also got a contract to close checklist. You had one earlier that we made up. We got it in the next slide. But it just, you're gonna check all these things off. Did you get the earnest money or a copy of it? You got the contracts all signed, everything's just clicking these things off as you move down through here to make sure you get them all done. You saw how many moving parts there are. I mean, you got a lot of people involved at this point, and any one of them could drop the ball. So you've got a checklist to make sure everybody's done their job. And follow up, that's a big part of this. Call them, say, did you get this done? Did you get it back to me? Can you get it back to me? Always be nice. Don't, where is it? I can't believe you haven't got it back to me yet. Because it may not come back to you. They may just say, okay, you want to play that game. Be nice. They're doing the same thing you're doing. So help them out with their job, and they're going to help you out with yours. So all these things all down through here, I mean, we just, pretty complete little checklist here. That's the checklist we just had. And then this is the one that we have here. Pretty much the same thing. We just went down through here and all the things that you've got to have. There's some things that legally we've got to have. Remember the RECAD. That's where you actually started this adventure. You met them at the grocery store, they called you off, you signed, however you made contact with them. First thing you've got to do is you RECAD. I am an agent, I have responsibilities to you. Because when the Real Estate Commission comes in to audit the files, that's the first piece of paper that should be on the top of the file. Here's where we started. Then we're going to move down through all the other things. You've got a contract. That needs to be in your file. So over here where it says file, those are the things that have got to be in the file. Net sheet, remember that? Got to be there. Then you're going to have the closing statement itself. Got to be there. Now, did you have a listing with them or a buyer agency agreement with them? That's two other forms, depending on which one you have, the listing agreement or the buyer's agreement, that'll be in the file as well. So you got about 5 pieces of paper or 5 things that should be in your file. And once you do a couple of these, you'll say, oh yeah, I need to have this, this, and this. We've got little, little stickers that we put on the file that's got these things listed that you've got to have these. So as you bring the file in, we use a highlighter and just mark off the ones, all right, here it is, here it is, here it is. Oh, you didn't bring the closing statement in. Okay, well, when you get the closing statement to us, we'll get you a check. Because the deal here with the brokerage, if you don't turn it in now and get your check, it's really going to be difficult on the broker to get you to get them that final piece of paper. You already moved on. But if you don't have a check yet, you'll get the paperwork to them. So that's just something that just happens. Time is of the essence. We've talked about this a couple times. This is a fairly recent change to our Birmingham sales contract where it says time is of the essence. And I went into a free dictionary. There's one that I like called Black's Law Dictionary, but this one had a real good definition of it. It says a phrase in a contract that means that performance by one party at or within the time period specified in the contract is necessary to enable the party to require performance of the other party. You're in breach if you've not met this timeline, or you lose your rights if you've not met this timeline. One of the timelines, the first one that I've actually had people miss it, is the inspection. Remember, our contract was 7 days to get the inspection done. Well, inspectors, they don't have stuff booked out 3 weeks in advance. You know, get the contract now, you call them, they can get to it within a day or two. 3 days at the most. The company that we use a lot here, he's got 3 inspectors. So pretty much you call him today, he can get it done tomorrow. So if you forget that though, and it's 2 weeks down the road and you call and say, hey, can I get my inspector in? They may tell you no. You missed that date. We really don't want you back in here anymore. That's their right. Or if they do let you do it. What's the advantage to them for them even letting you back in there now? So you may have lost that right because of this time is of the essence. The two that have got to be there. The inspection, it's a blank, and you can write in there how many days you think you need. As a rule, it'll be 7 days to get it done. And then response for that inspection, to where you're going to send this list to the seller. You don't send them the whole inspection report. There'll just be a summary that you'll get. Here are the bad things that we saw. And then you and the buyer will go through that list and say, okay, well, that's really not a problem. Or, yeah, that is. Well, that's got to be fixed. You'll come up with that little list of the important things, and you've got like 3 days to get that to the seller saying, okay, here are the things that we really think need to be replaced, repaired, or let's negotiate a lower price because of this. They may say, oh, you need a new roof. And the seller knew he needed a new roof. It's been leaking for years, and he just keeps putting patches on it. He knows it, been living with it. But now you're saying the deal's not going to be a deal unless we get a new roof. And he really doesn't want to put a new roof on it today. He doesn't have the money to put a new roof on it, or he would have already done it. So he's probably going to want to negotiate with you on the roof. And he'll say, okay, let's get a couple of 3 bids, and then we will give you a check at closing made out to the roofing company, or we'll just give you the deduction off the purchase price for say it's $5,000. Then they've got 2 days to get back to you and say, yeah, we'll do that. That's all these little timelines, though. You can't just let them slip by you, because if you do, you're the one that dropped the ball. And you're their agent. Got the Superman suit on. Also, we had some timelines for the financing. He mentioned that. Here it's 7 days, unless you change the number to something else. Oh, and they've got the lead-based paint opportunity. The contract that we just worked on was the house was built in 1955. So you've got to give them the lead-based disclosure, the booklet that goes along with it, and then they have 10 days to either have a lead-based paint assessment done, or they waive their rights to having it done. But that's another timeline. Another timeline is insurance. If you can't get the house insured, the mortgage company is not going to give you a mortgage. That's just the way it works. And they've got this thing called Clue Report, to where if the house has had a bunch of bad things happen to it, they may not want to insure it. You may have to go to another insurance company or another one. Insurance companies don't have to give you insurance just because you want it. Mortgage application process. There's a lot going on here. You're going to first call the mortgage company and say, hey, I'd like to talk to you about getting a mortgage. Tell me more about what are the rates today. Well, he's probably going to say, I really can't give you rates for today until we talk and I know more about your situation. Because the rates, we're going to see later on, will fluctuate depending on your situation. If your credit score is 620, you can get a loan, but the interest rate's not going to be the lowest. The higher you get, the closer you get to 720. You get to 720 and above, you'll pretty much get a good rate. Now, if you're up in the 800s, you know, they're just going to be falling over themselves to give you a loan. Just how much do you need? Because you have shown that you will pay your bills on time. And that's what they're going to base your interest rate on. So your application process is going to start there just with a phone call with them, and they'll talk to you. But then they're going to have you come in or either go online and fill out an application. We're going to see one here in a minute. But that application is going to tell them all about you. I mean, they're gonna know more about you than you really wanted them to know about you. And the mortgage guys, they're gonna get deep into your personal financial information, because they're throwing, you know, maybe $250,000 out there, saying they're not just gonna roll the dice and say, I hope they pay us back. No, they're gonna have a pretty good idea that you're gonna pay them back before they go to closing with you. All right, here's a uniform mortgage application. This is what one looks like. It says it's 9 pages, but there's really only like 4 pages of information. The rest of it's instructions on how to fill out the first 4 pages. Here's what we're looking for. Now this one is an online form to where you can just go right here and put in the amount that you're gonna, 250, well, it's not $250,000.
One too many zeros.
Yeah, 1 too many zero. $2.5 million loan. Not many mortgage companies that even do those. If you're playing in that ballpark, you probably have a personal banker that can handle everything for you. You won't have to fill out any of this. But most of the rest of us are going to have to fill this form out. And you can see what it's asking you, the type of loan we're going to get, you know, VA, FHA, these all have different qualifications, and you're going to have to go on down here, property information. Here's the property. Is this a purchase or is it a refinance? That's going to be different. If refinance, you shouldn't have as many closing costs, but you do. They're still going to appraise it. They're going to run all the credit reports on you. They're going to do all the other things that they do on a purchase. This one, the construction perm, that's one you may save a little money on closing costs because you're getting a loan to build the house, but the house is not there yet, so they're not going to give you a loan on $250,000 on a piece of dirt. It's going to work out, but you'll save closing costs if you do that. On down, we've got how much money. That's still in our construction. All right, here's the information on the borrower. Social Security number. You're going to have one of those because that's how they're going to run your credit. Who are you? Where are you? When were you born? I don't know what years of school's got to do with it. Here's your present address, your mailing address, your former address. Well, I haven't lived there in 20 years. Why do you need that? Don't argue with them. Just give them what they ask for. Co-borrower, usually it's going to be like a husband and wife. Sometimes one of them, you know, it's just maybe second marriage for both of them, and they're buying this new house together. Well, one of them got their credit ruined in the last marriage, so you may not even want them on the loan. But the lender, they'll counsel you on all this. Employment information. Where you work, how long have you been there? You got to be on the job, same type of work, 2 years. I heard a story about somebody that was sitting at a closing table and they got to talking about their new job. I just started my new job this week. Everything just stopped right there. They will run another credit report on you, like the day before closing. That's why they tell you, don't go out and buy all the new furniture for your house. So it'll be delivered on the day of closing. Don't do that, because when they run that credit report on you, you just bought $20,000 worth of furniture. That may knock your ratios out, and you're not going to qualify now. They will counsel you on this. They'll tell you, in fact, your agent, you are going to tell them, don't go ahead and buy the furniture. Don't go out and buy a new car. Your car, that's another thing. If you owe less than, I believe it's 14 months on your car, they don't count that against you. So if you owe, like, say, 14, 15, 16 months on your car and your ratios are real close, you might want to pay your car loan down, because car loans now are, what are they, $800 a month or something? I mean, they're just awful. That could knock a lot of people out of being qualified. And there's your employment information, how much you make, how long you've been there, all that kind of stuff. Income. You got a lot of different kinds of money that you can make. Well, a lot of people have several streams of income. Well, that third stream that you've got for teaching real estate classes on the weekend, maybe just what gets you up to your ratio to where you can qualify for a loan. Yeah, and all the students that come in on the weekend, so they're not getting paid. Assets, you know, what kind of liabilities do you have? Who do you owe? How much do you owe them? There's their cars thing we were just talking about. You got money in the bank? Tell us about it. You know, they're real comfortable with you if you've got enough money sitting in your savings account that you don't even need them. The less you need them, the more they like it. You'd be surprised how many people will work on this for 6 months. We got a mortgage company next door over here, and we've seen the same car, I'm gonna say 9 months or more. About every month, we'll see it out in the parking lot. And I'm thinking he had some issues that he had to work with them on, get some things paid down, maybe even open some credit accounts to show you've got credit. The most important thing on your credit is your payment history. 35% of their weight on their decision is based on your credit payment history. So I'm guessing this guy may have had some issues, and he's straightening them all up, and then one day we'll see him leaving here all happy. Everything will be great. But they'll work with you to help you, because they don't get paid until you close the loan. They just like real estate agents, they get paid for closing the loan. All right, what else we got here? Details of transaction. This is on the property you're buying. Oh, there's one. Are there any outstanding judgments against you? Well, you really didn't want anybody to know about that. But they're going to run a credit report on you, folks. That you're going to actually pay them to run a credit report on you that will find judgments. Bankruptcies within the last 7 years. Ouch. Well, it was 5 years ago. I thought we could just forget about that now. Everything's been handled and everybody was going to get money, got it. Well, they're going to look back. Are you a party to a lawsuit? Well, I didn't want to tell you about that either. But you're not going to hide anything from them. That's what I'm trying to get to you here. You're not hiding anything from them, because they're going to find it. They're going to call you and say, well, we ran your credit report and it looks like you were 30 days late on your car payment 2 years ago in February. What happened? They're finding it. They're looking back. In fact, when you get a credit report on somebody, it tells you how many times they were late, and it just, I mean, there's a lot of information there. And there we go. You're going to give them permission here. Acknowledge an agreement. Yeah, this is true. And yeah, I'm going to give you permission to run all these reports on me, because you can't just run reports on folks without their permission. All right, and that's where if you got some of these issues, they give you a whole sheet of paper to, well, tell me more about that. And you sign it, and so we had 5 pages of application and then 4 pages of instructions. This is on the appraisal. You've been to the mortgage company, talked to them, filled out the application, and now we're going to move to the appraiser. He's the next person that's going to, well, the inspector's probably going to go before the appraiser, or they may be there at the same time, same day, because both of them are under time limits. But this is the stuff that the appraiser's going to get. said, this is the main thing here, can I talk to you as an agent, can you talk to the appraiser? Yes, until he's through with his work. Then they don't want to fool with you anymore. Here you're going to say, okay, this house was just rehabbed. Here's what we did. We put granite in, and we put stainless package in, and we put a new roof on, new HVAC, new water heater. Point these things out to him, because he's busy. He may have missed the new water heater. He didn't crawl under the house and look at the HVAC system. He's afraid of spiders and snakes. He just opened the crawl space door and looked under there and said, yeah, there's a crawl space under here. Now they're looking for things, the crawl space, they want a vapor barrier down on the crawl space. So if he looks under there and doesn't see that, he's going to make a note of it. Well, in your stuff that you sent to him, you could say, and we put a 27 mil or whatever they measure that by, vapor barrier down. Just give him all the information you can give him up front. Here are the comparables that we used. Make it easy for him. Because once he's made his decision, so he followed a guideline. Here's what I've got to look for, and if I deviate from this, I've got to explain it. And he didn't want to have to explain stuff. That takes time. So if you can give him as much information as you can now, you're not going to have to come back over here. What if there's something inaccurate in it? I'm going to tell you, they don't want to have to say, I made a mistake. They got to protect their license just like you're protecting yours. So they're going to back everything up with objectionable evidence. Nothing subjective about his opinion. It is carved in stone once he makes it. And I'm going to tell you, every now and then, you'll want to go back and get them to change something, and they don't like that. They don't want to do it. So if you're going to have issues, you think this property is not going to appraise for what you've sold it for, give him the reasons that it's sold for this price. Don't wait till he makes an opinion, and that's what it is. It's his opinion as of this date, and then come back to him and say, well, you didn't even look at the one next door. It closed last week. Well, those records haven't hit the records yet. He didn't have that one, and it was just like this one. In fact, you did the flip on that one, and it's just like this one, and you sold it for, this much money. He needs to know that. Here's the thing: it's better to cover this before you get to it than to have to come back and uncover it and cover it back over. Appraisal process, I think we just covered that pretty good there. But let's look at an appraisal. A lot of stuff going on there. This is, I don't know how many pages these things are, but it's a bunch of pages. And he gets into so much detail. He checks everything. He has to go back and pull up records, the properties that he's using as comparables. He's got to almost appraise them. He's got to adjust their value to get to your value. On an appraisal, y'all had this in pre-license, but your appraisal is, you're trying to find the value of your subject property, not the value of something that's already sold. Well, this one that's already sold had a garage. Yours doesn't have a garage. When we had CIA doesn't want CBS watching them. That's how you, if the comparable's inferior, you add to its value, not your value. If the comparable's better, you subtract from its value. So you find out a garage, because you can look at others around here that had a garage and sold. Well, you can say, okay, well, that garage is worth $10,000. Well, you don't adjust yours, you adjust theirs. All right, well, theirs would have sold for this if it didn't have the garage. That's what he's got to dig down deep to figure out what is a garage worth. But he got a place on here for it. I mean, everything that he needs to have on here, they use. This is a uniform form that they have, and they have it's got general rules of appraisal practice or something like that. It's got little initials, and he does a little narrative about the property, how he feels about it and its condition, and how it compares to others, and they get deep, way deeper than we get on our comparative market analysis. All right, on down, tells all about the house, and remember we had even the site, how big is the lot. I mean, it's right down to 2,700 square feet. It's a 0.6 of an acre. It slopes this way, the water drains right. And he gets so deep in these appraisals. That's why I'm telling you, if there's something he needs to know, give it to him before he does all this work. Because he's done the work and he's turned it into the lender now. And you want him to go back and open this file up and change something in here. I'm just telling you, not going to happen. All right. We got that. What happened to our... I don't want that starting again either. There we go. Home inspection. All right, these guys can make you or break you. They have broken a lot of sales. You thought it was in pretty good shape. Well, the buyer is going to hire these guys to go out there, and they're going to pay them $400 or more, depending on the size of the house, to find things wrong with it. That's his job. He's not there to just look at the pretty house and say, oh, this is so nice, I could live here. No, he's looking for things wrong with that house. He's a professional complainer. Y'all met those kind of people. Everything's wrong. This is just, no, this is just wrong. This is a company that we deal with. Got some little videos on how they work. Got some little testimonials, veteran-owned company. These people do our rental inspections. We have all our rental properties inspected about once a year, and he goes in and does those for us. And then he'll come back and give us a report. Here's what's going on. And then we can go to the owner and say, okay, we need to address this. This needs repairing. But these guys, like I said, they're not, their goal is not to hurt the sale. Their goal is to tell you what's wrong with the house you're fixing to buy. So if he looks up on the roof, you were there, you didn't even see the roof. You're so, oh, it's just so pretty. I just love it here. You didn't even see the roof. You couldn't tell if it was shingles or metal. Well, he got a little selfie stick. He put his camera on there, and he's not getting up on the roof. He's gonna put his little camera up there and look around on the roof and get a video of it, pictures of it, and that'll be in your report. And if it's shingles, and he's looking at them and he sees they're curled up, that's an indication to him that there's something wrong with the roof. They should all be laying flat. There's a lot of things just by looking at it you can say, well, you need to get a professional roofer to come out here and take a look at this and see, do you need a new roof? Homeowners insurance. So clicking on that, homeowners insurance covers what they call perils. Perils are things like fire, wind damage, smoke, lightning hits it, a tree falls on it, somebody breaks in and steals your stuff. That's what homeowners insurance covers. That's different from a home warranty, which we'll get to in a minute. Homeowner's insurance covers some things it does not cover. Like, it doesn't cover rising water. A lot of people don't realize that. And now with our flooding getting more and more, that's going to be more of an issue. So more people are going to probably have to have flood insurance, which will be about as much as your homeowner's insurance, because they're pretty much covering the same stuff. Again, you've got to contact these people within 7 days of the contract becoming a two-sided contract to say, hey, can I get insurance on this house? And can you afford it? Now, once you've got a company and they say, okay, here's what your policy is going to be, that is going to go to the closing agency, the escrow agent. And then they're going to collect that much money up front. A year's premium is what you, this shocks a lot of people on a closing statement. Whoa, what's this $1,500 for? Well, that $1,500 is for a year of hazard or homeowner's insurance plus a couple of months of escrow, so we can keep collecting each month 1/12, and then next year when it's due, the mortgage company will have enough money to pay it for you, because they don't trust you to pay it, because it's Christmas. You don't have $1,500 to pay you. You got to buy a trampoline and some bicycles, and I just don't have $1,500 right now. And then your Christmas tree catches on fire. Uh-oh, now we got a problem. So the mortgage company says, we're just going to collect it as part of your payment. That's PITI, P-I-T-I, that's one of the I's, the insurance. So they're going to collect that and pay it for you. Survey. This company here, that's one of the bigger companies here in Birmingham. Again, like him, even the home inspector a minute ago, I use him. I'll recommend him, but I will not guarantee him. Same thing with surveys or termites or any of these other people. You may have a great relationship with them, but you still don't guarantee they're going to be the best or the cheapest or never make a mistake. The survey is going to cover just what's here. Where are the property markers? Y'all seen houses after they've sold, they had the real estate sign up front, and then a couple of weeks later you see these little pink tags on a little piece of wood out in the front yard, and it's about 10 or 12 feet from the curb. That's actually where your property is. You don't own all the way out there. There's an easement there from the street on to your property. So you're still going to have to cut that grass and take care of it and all, but your property actually started way back in here. They'll mark all these places for you. All the corners, they'll mark them. Then they'll draw you a survey. Got two kinds, a spot survey, that's where Spot's house is drawn on the survey, and all the utility lines, the fence, anything that's there, they draw on there for you. And that's the kind you want. So you can see where everything is. Oh no, the neighbor's garage is a couple feet inside our property line. Uh-oh, what are we going to do? You just paid $400 because you paid for the survey. The buyer paid for the survey. What are you going to do? You just going to let it go? You say, well, I don't want to start a fight with the neighbors before I move in. You got to make a decision. You're going to let them just have, it's 2 feet over in your yard. Is it important? I don't know. I can't make that decision for you. You can't make it for your buyer either. You can't say, well, that's not important. It may be important to them. Let them make that decision. And if it's, what's it called, make or break, go, no go, then the seller needs to go to that neighbor who's encroaching over there and say, we got a problem. How do we want to handle this? And they may work it out to where they may deed that little piece of property to the neighbor and get some money from the neighbor. money is that gonna be now? You're gonna have to work all these things out. Everything in real estate is negotiable. And that's just one little example of it. Wood infestation report. That's the company here that Alabama Professional Services, they do the termite. They'll do the initial treatment. They'll come back and monitor it. They'll put the little, y'all seen these little green things in people's yards? Yeah, they got a little chunk of wood down there. You open them up. I was curious one day. I thought, what in the world is that? And I opened it up. There's a little piece of 2x4 in there. I thought, what in the world did they do that for? It's because if there are termites there, they'll come and start eating that wood. Then when they come back, they open that up and say, oh, there are termites. Then they'll deal with the termites. But they don't want to just pump poison into the ground unless they have to. When they have a issue with termites, when the inspector would infestation termites, it's going to be the same guy that does both of them. The termite, that's where they're going to start looking for termites. And they're going to look around the windows, down around the wood down the bottom. If they see it looks like a little bulge in it, like a little tunnel, that's probably where termites have got nothing in there. You can take your pen and kind of poke in that little spot, and if it just sinks on down in there, where it shouldn't if the wood was there, then we probably got termites here. Then they'll come out and they will treat just this area. They'll look around, they'll check the window over here and on down and back this way. But if they find the termites are just right here, they don't need to pump poison in the ground all the way around here. They need to find out where they are, and then they'll probably drill holes down through the concrete and put a little poison right there. Because termites have broken through what's called a termite barrier. And once they break through it, they didn't break through it all the way around the house. Y'all seen a termite barrier? If you've ever been in like a full basement house that they've got concrete blocks, and then right at the top of the concrete blocks is this little piece of metal laying over there. Laying over, usually it'd be kind of down a little angle like that. That's a termite barrier. Termites don't eat through metal.